It's lost that beauty. Men can be soft and beautiful too. They don't always have to be this hard little tiny little man with a bald head who's just shouting and screaming. Men can be beautiful, strong creatures too.
Oh, hi. Yeah, hello. Yeah, I'd like to get some more information about hair transplants, please. Hello everyone, welcome back to all of you in the Smelly Army. So today I'm going to talk about Creed fragrances. I guess this video is my answer then to the video from about a month or so back where Aaron Terence Hughes, the UK based perfumer, did an interview with Chris from the channel Frag-Mental, and he checked out I think six different Creed fragrances and gave his opinion on them. He wasn't very keen on them. And this is in no way a shots fired type of video. He's every right to his own opinion, and I'm going to put a link to the video and to the Aaron Terence Hughes YouTube channel, and of course to my friend Chris's YouTube channel too. But I thought I do like Creed fragrances evidently a lot more than Aaron Terence Hughes, so I thought I'd kind of just do my little answer and defend why I think some of their fragrances are still really good. Before we get into that, don't forget to check out my Smelly Army private members club over on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. It only costs $2 a month and you get a video from me every single week, plus you can watch all the other exclusive videos that I've uploaded over the last year. All kinds of interesting topics, sometimes the kind of things I wouldn't maybe do on YouTube are there, and we're building a nice community, lots of interaction. Hope to see you in there. Okay, so into the subject for today. So Aaron Terence Hughes is a UK based perfumer. He's got his own brand, Aaron Terence Hughes perfumes. I haven't tried any yet, but I hope I might have the opportunity. Oh no, I have. Well, I have briefly tried some actually, because I met him, on a day out where we met Stephen from Redolescence last week. So I've tried a few very, very briefly, but I haven't got my own samples here at home to try out properly. So I can't comment on his perfumes, but it would be interesting maybe to get a chance to feature them or try them out a bit more on the channel at some point. Anyhow, what we're talking about today is Creed fragrances. So the video, which has got loads of views, that's on Chris's channel from Frag-Mental, and Chris is a really nice guy. I get on really well with him. We've met a couple of times, a fellow fragrant reviewer in the UK, and he did a video. They were talking about the Creed fragrances, and Aaron Terence Hughes tried them blind and had some incredibly negative things to say about a lot of them. So I thought I'd talk about the same ones, what I think of them, and why I still think Creed fragrances are pretty good. A lot of people would agree with some of what Aaron Terence Hughes said in the video. He kind of said that he felt like the brand maybe were taking advantage of people a little bit because their prices are quite high, and the fragrances to him smelt kind of safe and pedestrian, not so exciting, and you can sort of see the point. For me, and I'm sure for a lot of people watching this video, Creed is a brand that tends to be a gateway kind of brand between liking designer, very, very mainstream fragrances, and maybe helping you to discover the world of niche perfumery. So of course Creed now is a brand that's in a lot of the big department stores. Most department stores that have a big fragrance thing, if they have any niche stuff at all, Creed is more than likely going to be one of them. It's pretty much the most well-known niche fragrance brand. Niche fragrances, we're talking about fragrances from companies really that specialize in fragrances as the main thing they do, i.e. not Chanel, Yves Saint Laurent, Dior, designer fashion houses where the fragrances are kind of a spin-off of a fashion line of handbags, clothing, etc., etc. So some people would consider Creed not really even proper niche perfumery because it's so mainstream, it's marketed in such a big way. The other thing about niche perfume is that we tend to think it will be less easily available, not in every high street, that kind of thing. Creed founded apparently back in 1760, so they go back a very long way. There's a very long history. A lot of their claims are to do with having made fragrances for royalty over the years and famous celebrities, that kind of thing. Not everyone buys into all that, but everyone's got their own little marketing angle with the brand, and these guys certainly do. So the main thing that you got from Aaron Terence Hughes when he was talking about them is that he felt they were rather unexciting fragrances, not inspiring, and he said they were very safe, and some of them he actually kind of thought were quite nice and wearable maybe, but they didn't excite him. And I can sort of see his point in a way. So let's get stuck into them in order. The first one he rated was Viking. He gave this a 2 out of 10 score and said it was really boring and just very blur. So it's the only one here. As you can see, I own a lot of Creed fragrances, full bottles, and they are a house that I've invested some money in. Now, the Viking is one that I don't own, the only one that we're talking about in the video where I don't have the full thing. We've got a little sample here, so I've tried it many times. It's a kind of spicy, woody, masculine fragrance, bit of almost a barbershop vibe, and some people actually compare it to Old Spice, which is a very inexpensive fragrance. I kind of agree with him a bit that it's not the fragrance that excites me most from Creed, so I'm going to gloss over that one a bit. I certainly don't think it's a 2 out of 10. I think it's quite pleasant, but it hasn't quite moved me ever enough to want to go and buy a bottle. It was kind of the one that was hyped up as maybe it was going to be the next big thing after Aventis, their most famous fragrance, but I don't think it's ever really going to replace that as their #1 seller. It hasn't done, I don't think, but it's decent, but not a favourite for me. One that is a favourite that he was very disparaging about, Mr. ATH, was Bois de Portugal by Creed. So I've got actually 2 bottles of this one. I've had decants too. Superb fragrance, first released in 1987. Now, Aaron Terence Hughes said the main thing he got a lot of from it with this one, the smell he noticed most, was lemon. He kept saying lemon, lemon, lemon. He described it as similar to Lemon Pledge, and he said that his cleaner has better smelling products that they use to clean than this, which I found surprising. So, Bois de Portugal looks something like this, an old style 120ml bottle. It's a classic gentlemanly fragrance. It's got bergamot, it's got sandalwood, quite a bit of lavender. I think there is some ambergris in there, vetiver, depending which note readings you list. Very, very gentlemanly, classic kind of bergamot citrusy opening. I wouldn't say it's very, very lemony. It's actually one of the less citrus heavy ones really amongst Creed fragrances compared to some of their really zesty ones. Very, very sophisticated to me, kind of combination of classic masculine gentlemanly kind of sense, reminiscent of things like Chanel's Pour Monsieur, even a hint of Monsieur de Givenchy from the 50s, but a little bit of a richer kind of vibe going on here, a lovely dusty woody kind of aroma, very smooth, certainly a dated smell. Maybe a bit of a dad smell, but a total classic. It was apparently Frank Sinatra's signature scent. He's no longer with us, but that gives you an idea of the kind of guy that might wear this. A dressed up kind of suit scent, definitely. Could be a signature scent for a gentleman. Nice performance on it. Bois de Portugal, total classic stuff. For me, a 10 out of 10 fragrance. So maybe Aaron Terence Hughes doesn't really like the old school gentlemanly kind of things, which would explain why Creed isn't maybe the brand for him. Moving on from that one, the third one that he talked about was Royal Oud. Now, Royal Oud is a recent release from 2011, relatively recent, and this is a very, very interesting fragrance to me, quite sophisticated. It certainly has a freshness about it. Again, the bergamot kind of lemon thing is going on there. There's pink pepper. It has the name Oud in the title, but it isn't really an oud-like smell. Now, Aaron Terence Hughes actually, this was one of the few that he had some good things to say. He said it was a nice fragrance. He liked it more than the others, and he said it reminded him essentially of a nice old man. I think it gave him positive memories of the kind of thing his granddad used to wear or smell of. It wouldn't have been Royal Oud, but we get the picture. He didn't find it very exciting though, but he thought it was just kind of nice. So it was almost, he was damning it with faint praise that, yeah, it's a nice old man smell, essentially. No wonder I like it. He ended up giving it, I think, a 5.5 out of 10, which by his standards was generous. I think it's a fantastic, lovely, fresh opening on this one, and a lovely, dry, ashy, woody kind of feel in the underneath of this one. There's all kinds of complicated notes in here. I think we've got a bit of cedarwood. I think it's galbanum is one of the other notes in there. Quite kind of dry, bitter, almost chypre-esque in some ways. Very, very woody to me. There's a kind of hint of the pencil shavings in a good way about this one. And again, a lovely lemony kind of freshness in the opening, which I personally really enjoy. So very, very interesting. A little bit like the 21st century partner to Bois de Portugal, but slightly less of a really old-fashioned 70s, 80s dad smell than Bois de Portugal. Great stuff. Again, I'd give it a really high 9 or 10 out of 10 score. I am a little bit of a kinder marker, I think, than Aaron Terence Hughes when it comes to fragrances. So far, one that I kind of agree is not so amazing, but it's all right, Viking. Bois de Portugal, come on, that's a classic, brilliant fragrance, and Royal Oud, a great gentlemanly scent too. Then we moved on to Green Irish Tweed. I've got the old style 75ml bottle. Nowadays it just comes in a black bottle, looking more like that. And this is one of their, basically before Aventis came along, this was their flagship men's fragrance. First released in 1985, many people believe it was Pierre Bourdon who was the perfumer behind this one. He also did Cool Water a few years later, which is kind of the cheaper version of this, effectively, by Davidoff. Green Irish Tweed Lemon Verbena, very bright. It's a grassy smell. It's got violet leaf, it's got sandalwood. It uses an ingredient called dihydromercenol, which is also in Cool Water and was very prevalent in the 80s and 90s, giving this kind of crisp, clean, woody, maybe slightly generic kind of smell because it's in so many things. It's supposed to represent the smell of a walk in the Irish countryside. And it's wonderfully bright, wonderfully versatile, and really just, I find it timelessly elegant, although Aaron Terence Hughes did say it kind of smelled like the 90s. Probably they agreed in the end, himself and Chris, when they talked it through. This might be because it reminded him, without having identified the smell of that one specifically, of maybe the smell of Cool Water by Davidoff. Also, ATH said it kind of made him, it had a holiday vibe, maybe the idea of wearing Bermuda shorts, a bit of a blue smell, which is interesting because obviously it's Green Irish Tweed. Creed, as they said in the video, Chris aptly, rightly pointed out, it's interesting that Creed say it's all about the Irish countryside and a sort of greenness, and then Cool Water was marketed more as being aquatic, and the colour blue was kind of representing it. Either way, this is basically a better, higher quality version of Cool Water. It's extremely gentlemanly. It's got this lovely grassy greenness about it. There are many clones of it out there, and there's some really good ones that get close, but none of them quite capture something about that verdant, bright, sharp green opening. There's just this certain je ne sais quoi, a magic about the real Green Irish Tweed for me that other brands can't quite replicate, I don't think. So for me, again, an undoubted 10 out of 10. For ATH, he did give that one a 7.25. 7.25 out of 10. So at least we're closer in our opinion on that one. Great stuff. It probably, yeah, okay, if you're interested in artisanal, pushing the envelope fragrances nowadays that are out there, yeah, this could seem a little staid and boring. But for me, you know, it's like saying wearing a white shirt is boring. Well, sometimes you just need items like that in your wardrobe that are going to be safe, but they're going to work in any situation. And Green Irish Tweed is one of those. Price-wise then, that one, for example, the 100ml retail price from Creed themselves is £230. And Aaron Terence Hughes was kind of angry about the prices, I think. He said it made him angry. He said that they were essentially, he felt maybe taking advantage of people. I will agree that that is quite expensive for a 100ml fragrance, and you can find other less hyped, less well-known, less widely distributed niche brands that will sell things that you may enjoy just as much as this, and you can maybe get a 100ml bottle for 120, 140 pounds, even less in the case of some brands, under 100 if you're really, you know, if you find a Mancera, Cedrat Boise, or many of the indie brands, they can offer more excitement for less money maybe. However, the Green Irish Tweed smell has not successfully been mimicked precisely by anyone else, and if you really want it, it could be worth saving up and having one or two of Creed's total classics in your collection, I think. Of course, that's a lot of money. I think although fragrances can be very, it can be a really expensive hobby to be into, compared to if you were really into cars, luxury watches, designer clothes, relatively speaking, that's not a huge outlay of money for something if you really like it, and a full bottle will last you quite a while. So, you know, it is expensive relatively, but we're not talking thousands of pounds. So I think fragrances are one of the less outrageously financially damaging obsessions that you could have compared to some things. Discuss, people, discuss. Now then, we went on to the big one. Aventis was next to get the ATH treatment. I've just got a 30ml old one there. I do have a decant. So both batches, I think, this one certainly, the bottle here is from 2015. So classic pineapple, bergamot, patchouli, blackcurrant, maybe jasmine, depending who you ask, oak moss in the base. birchwood, a kind of smoky feel about this one as well, with the wonderful freshness. Fantastic, bright citrus fragrance. Well-known and very picky perfume writer Luca Turin said it was really good stuff in a recent book that he released, and he's very picky and not really a creedophile type of guy. But Aaron Terence Hughes was not impressed. He didn't seem to recognise it because he was blind smelling, but on that, I mean, it was a bit interesting. Some people have commented, well, if you're a niche perfumer, you're in the world of perfume, isn't it a bit surprising that you're not somewhat familiar with some of these fragrances, Green Irish Tweed, Aventis? Wouldn't you maybe recognise what they were? So that was surprising. It doesn't mean he's, maybe he just doesn't smell other fragrances that much. Not everyone is into sampling everything else. Some artists don't look at other artists' work. Some musicians don't listen to other people's albums. But it was interesting. It was kind of surprising that he didn't seem to recognise it. He derided it as nauseating chemical sludge, I quote, and he was like, I'm so over this, that kind of stuff. He said rehashed was a word he used a few times about it. Now, that's kind of weird because ultimately it's this fragrance, which came out in 2010, which has been rehashed by other people and is now copied by countless other clones. Even designer brands like Mont Blanc with Explorer are taking the leaves out of this book. So yeah, I thought that was maybe not quite fair on this fragrance. It's very, very good, very versatile, a great masculine scent. The only downside with it is it has become a very prevalent smell that people either are wearing it or things based on it, and that's why I've gone off it, as it's no longer one of my big favourites. But I can't see how you could say it smelled like chemical sludge. It smells nice. It really does smell nice and pleasant. But everyone has their own opinions, and I relish that. And I'm, no way is this a shots fired thing that I don't like Aaron Terence Hughes. I met him. I think he's a nice guy. He's very interesting. He is a little bit abrasive, and his manner is very flamboyant, so he won't be to everyone's taste. But I welcome the fact that he's burst onto the scene. It makes things interesting. So, definitely there's no hostility from me towards him. Last but not least, we did Royal Mayfair, which is a really interesting one from Creed. Royal Mayfair then I think came out a little bit after Aventis, and very much, a lot of these are kind of unisex, but this one may be more so than Green Irish Tweed and Aventis. But the ones in this bottle design I think tend to be sort of aimed at men. So based on an old fragrance they had called Windsor, which was out many, many years ago, much different to a lot of the other ones. Some of the notes include gin, eucalyptus, pine and rose. It's a kind of classic vibe, but it's not anything like any of the others. It has a kind of almost menthol, maybe even slightly medicinal smell about it. It can be a bit strange almost at first. It has a very nice rose note, a lovely kind of pininess, and this gin kind of boozy, bright but boozy, and not boozy, but I guess you were talking about maybe, I don't think it's listed as a note, but the juniper or something from gin. It's nice. It's a really, really good, interesting but somewhat delicate kind of smell that I find absolutely fascinating, and I really enjoy wearing. I actually find it a nice spring fragrance. Claire from the Smurfy Girlies channel says it smells like creosote. Chris was talking about opening a box of tennis balls, so people get weird stuff out of this, but ultimately I've come around to think it's a real masterpiece. Top 3 from Creed, or top 4 or 5. Love it. Aaron Terence Hughes talked about a power crazy little man in a box, as somehow that was the image this conjured up to him. Don't get that, but yeah, really, really good stuff. Okay, yes, it's subtle, it's delicate, it's not a sexy, sultry fragrance with tons of leather with oud. But to say that fragrances in the Creed lineup, which tend to be that way, maybe a bit delicate, maybe safe as in versatile, maybe not wildly crazy and groundbreaking, to say that that's therefore not good stuff, not good perfumery, that it's inherently inferior to fragrances which are very daring and in your face, I don't agree with that. It's a bit like if you said, well, I'm a food critic, but I only really like fragrances that are really strong curries, or very powerful exotic flavours, very rich, very unctuous. I'm not impressed if someone just has a beautifully flavoured bit of sea bass or whatever with a few herbs on it, perfectly done. Well, these are the fragrant equivalent of that there. It's a light, delicate, fragrant meal, but it's done with great skill. And in some ways, when you make a fresh fragrance, when you make a delicate fragrance, that could be more difficult because you've got to get it just right. If you pour in tons of vanilla an oud or you know, very heavy, rich, maybe sweet notes, anything's probably going to smell quite good and quite sort of wow. But if you're messing around with bergamot, with cedarwood, with notes which are maybe light and crisp, I think in some ways it could be harder to get that balance just right, because you haven't got a lot of easy, pleasing, vanilla, strong kind of smells to mask any imperfections in what you do. So I think there's a great skill in these, and I think Creed also have some captive ingredients that other brands don't have. There's a certain sort of unique signature smell about Creed that is there in most of these, I think. A few others that I've got in my collection, very briefly. Aqua Original line, Aberdeen lavender, fantastic lavender note in this one, and a sort of slightly absinthe-esque smell, so kind of licoricey, that is similar to anise. Great kind of, like a lighter version, lighter in the fragrant profile of Creed's Bois de Portugal. Really, really good fragrance. And I've also got Neroli Sauvage, fantastic, like it a lot better than Neroli Portofino, a real kind of crisp eau de cologne, wonderful fresh fragrance, but performance not amazing, very natural smelling though. I've got Himalaya in the box here, just to give you a look at the box. Himalaya, again, a great kind of gentlemanly, fresh, any occasion kind of smell, citrus with a kind of metallic accord, and I love the bottle on that one. And another huge favourite for me, Virgin Island water, superb kind of lime and coconut combination, fantastic summer holiday fragrance, or any kind of fresh, any occasion when you want to smell fresh and really good. Virgin Island water. Shame they didn't do that one in the video, but I don't know what Aaron Terence Hughes would have thought of it. And of course, I'm lucky enough to have Spice and Wood gifted to me by the lovely Claire a few years back, even more expensive than some of the others, so people can talk about the prices there. Love Spice and Wood, fantastic kind of bergamot, does have some birchwood and some kind of cinnamon spiciness. It is spicy and woody, it's very high quality stuff. And I find it exciting, but some people into really out there fragrances might say it's not exciting enough for them. But I love Creed. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you saw the Aaron Terence Hughes video. Thank you ever so much for watching. We're out of time there. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget, whatever you're doing in life, whether you're Aaron Terence Hughes, whether you're me, whether you're Chris from Frag-Mental, or whether you're one of our lovely viewers, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. See you in the next video. Bye bye. Smelly.